Hi guys, 16-Bit Dad here, and welcome back once again to this RPG Retrospective, where we take a dive into the sea of RPGs on the PS1. Today's game, Azure Dreams. Azure Dreams was developed by Konami, back when they were still interested in actually making good games. It was released on the PlayStation in 1997. It received generally average reviews by the various major titles at the time. Many people cite the soft roguelike gameplay mixed with the low quality storyline and kind of subpar character development as major downsides of the game, or at least that's what people kind of spoke about back then. But those statements are so broad, they just kind of don't really explain anything. They're just such sweeping statements that they completely discredit the good parts of the game as well, because there are some. So rather than just accept those statements, I want to give you guys a better understanding of both the positives and the negatives about Azure Dreams. Starting off with the gameplay, Azure Dreams definitely takes some inspiration from the whole roguelike genre of games, but not in the sense that it's actually part of that genre, if that makes sense. It will do in a minute anyway. The main crux of the game involves you basically working your way up this tower. I think there's 40 levels in it. It's full of monsters and it's a grid-based map, and you basically grind your way through. Along the way you get eggs that you can hatch into familiars, basically pets, monsters that help you out. They'll fight alongside you and level up with you, and basically that's how you kind of progress and grow in the game for the most part. However, if you hatch them in the tower, when you leave the tower, you'll actually lose them. You have to hatch them in your house, in town, in order for them to kind of see you as a paternal figure and actually stay with you. That, of course, brings in another aspect of the gameplay. When you leave that tower, your level actually resets back to 1. And you basically have to start the entire tower from the beginning. You don't go, when you re-enter, you don't go back to the same floor you're on. You start at level 1 and floor 1. Thankfully, your familiars levels don't reset, and that's what I mean by the main growth of the game. Every time you're going in the tower, you're grinding your level up, but your pets are leveling up with you, but theirs don't reset. So while you get to level 10, or say we both get to level 10, and then you leave the tower, you drop down to 1, they stay at 10. So you get 10 more levels, you're at 1 and they're at 20, and you just keep going through that ongoing thing as they kind of get higher and higher and higher above you, and that's how you end up progressing in the game, by using your familiars and the higher levels to help you kill some of the stronger enemies, because otherwise trying to grind through all 40 in one go without them would be a nightmare. On top of that, being that it's an RPG, you do earn money as you go through. However, unlike most RPGs, you're not going to be purely spending it on your gear and your magic or anything else that you want to get. You actually can spend it on doing up the town. For example, you can build a library, you can build a gym, you can build or rebuild the statue and the fountain inside the town centre. You basically reconstruct this quite desolate town, which is supposed to be, according to the intro, a very well off town, but it's missing a lot of stuff. And you, using the money that you make as effectively a treasure hunter in the tower, you rebuild the town. Sadly, you can't customise the town. Instead, the buildings appear basically where they were programmed to appear, pretty much. You can't move things around. It's not like a Sims style game where you can choose where everything goes. You go, you buy it, it gets built. They also don't really add a lot to the gameplay. You don't get any extra real backstory, any extra particularly important quests, or any quests at all really. All you get is one thing: the ability to talk to girls. Yep, meet girls. That is it. Basically, there's a select number of girls in the game that you can start a relationship with and unlock, but you unlock them by basically purchasing these various buildings. This might make you think of things like, for example, in the Persona series when you get the social links, but don't expect these relationships to be anything like the social links, because they're really not. In order to progress through these relationship quests, all you really have to do is talk to the girl over and over and over again. Just stand in front of them and press X. That's all you do. That's it. No cool quests, no side missions, nothing. You just talk to them and they fall in love with you. Just like that. And yes, I can't click my fingers. Who cares? Once they fall in love with you, unlike Persona where you get, for example, to unlock new abilities or a decent side story, you get one thing as well. Everything is based around one thing each time. And what do you get for going through the hardship of talking to the same person over and over again? When you wake up after leaving the tower, they'll be there in your room. That is it. That is all they do. Now, I can see what the developers wanted to do with this. I can see that they wanted to add something different, something more unique than your typical dungeon crawling RPG. But they could have done so much more. It could have been an awesome addition to the game. It could have been a really nice thing. I mean, look how well it worked for things like Persona. It could have been brilliant back on the PS1. You could have built the characters up more. You could have created this nice subplot and side story to complement the grind of going through those 40 levels of the tower. Instead, what you get is a relatively pointless task with very little gameplay, a mechanic that doesn't really add anything to the game. And that's the real problem with Azure Dreams. It's got some really good ideas and thoughts and planning in it, but when it comes to the implementation of these as gameplay mechanics, it really misses the mark in a lot of sense. For example, it tries to add the whole roguelike inspiration into the tower with all of the grinding, but with a roguelike you don't get to save your game whenever you want when you're in said tower and then just reload if things go wrong. It tries to implement a romance side plot, but then all you have to do is spam talk to the girls and you complete it. There's no real actual quest line or anything. It tries to add a sort of tactical element to the gameplay in the tower in order to keep you invested and make your brain think and get you engaged and immersed in it. But to be honest, it just feels repetitive. It doesn't feel exciting in the slightest. Even with the fact that every time you go in the tower, the floors change, which again is a really cool mechanic. It means that you're always in a new area with new things to explore, except for floor 2, which is just always the same because it's an event floor. With that said, even with these cool, I guess procedurally generated kind of randomised floors, the gameplay just isn't there to make it worth your while to keep going through all 40 floors over and over and over and over again, because you will have to go through them countless times as you fill up on your items and have to go sell stuff, as you find a new familiar egg to hatch and you need to keep it, so you have to leave, go back to your house, and then every time you do that you start at floor 1 again. And that would be brilliant. That would be fine. I would love that if the gameplay was actually fun. It tries loads of different gameplay ideas but never manages to quite pull them off. Any of them. However, it's not all bad. And at the beginning of this video I said everyone always focuses on the negatives when you look at a lot of the reviews. And they do. And there are a lot of them. But it's not all bad. As I said a minute ago, the floors they're randomised, which means every time you go in there, apart from the event floor on floor 2, you're always going to have a new experience, which is really cool. The tower is probably the best part of Azure Dreams, which is good because it's the main part of Azure Dreams. The gameplay isn't great at all. It's not enjoyable, but the way they've done the tower is really impressive. The fact that it changes every time means that there's always going to be something slightly different for you to go and explore. And if you're an explorer in games like I am, that's a real treat because you just want to keep going and seeing what else you can find. Sadly, it wasn't enough to keep me interested for the entire grind of 40 floors repeated over and over again. Neither was the story, actually. You play as a young man named Ko. To begin with, you see Ko as a child watch as his father, a treasure hunter, goes off into the tower in an attempt to basically make lots and lots of money. But he never comes back. We then get a very, very sudden time jump to when Ko is now 18 and becoming an adult, and therefore can go treasure hunting himself. The initial reason that you, as Ko, decide to go into the tower is actually to find out what happened to your father and why he never came back. This initially seems like a really intriguing start to a storyline that could be really good and have a lot of twists and turns and just keep you invested the whole time. However, when you consider that the tower has 40 levels and you don't even really meet your antagonist until level 31, 9 levels before the end of the game, that's a lot of grinding in order to actually see some form of story progression. I mean, you get a few odd events every now and then, but for real story progression you need an antagonist, and you don't get that until you're over 3/4 of the way through the game, and that is not good pacing. I'll be honest, I didn't manage to finish Azure Dream. I never have, and I've played it, and I've tried again loads of times throughout the years, and I've never been able to bring myself to actually finish the game. Grinding is fine for me. I'm more than fine with grinding. That's why I like MMOs. I mean, I've grinded like mad on Final Fantasy XIV online. MMOs in general, I'm fine with, because in an MMO, there's a storyline to work with that you're in throughout the entire grind, all the way through, not right near the end of the game. There is a constant driving force. Whilst Azure Dreams has a storyline, it takes so long for something to actually happen and for you to actually work out what you're going against and who the antagonist is and what you're driving towards, that it just doesn't pull you along. It just sort of disappears for a while and leaves you in this grind of just repeating the same thing over and over again with no actual foreseeable end goal. Azure Dreams could have been a brilliant roguelike-ish RPG with a decent storyline. It could have had cool, unique for the time gameplay mechanics like a decent relationship system, the town building and everything. It could have been so good, but it wasn't. And I'm really sad to say this because I really wanted to like this game. It doesn't get a lot of recognition at all. Very few people even seem to remember it. So I really wanted to like it because I tend to like obscure RPGs for the PS1. So this always intrigued me, and the ideas that the developers had are so cool. They're so impressive. They could have been so great, but the way it was implemented just doesn't work. And I think if they'd had maybe a bigger budget or maybe more time, I don't know, they could have made something amazing. But then from a budget point of view, it's Konami, and they at that time were making Silent Hill, and we all know how amazing that game is. It's phenomenal. So how can they make something as good as Silent Hill with all those cool new features, the fog to mask the loading screen, which became part of the storyline, and all this amazing work, and then create Azure Dreams where they had all these great ideas and then couldn't do them? Yes, okay, it's not made by Team Silent themselves, but considering Team Silent were the outcasts of Konami at the time, you'd expect the people that Konami had faith in to be able to make something just as good. And they didn't at all. Now, I don't want to slam the game, I really don't, because there's going to be some people out there who can enjoy the game, but personally, I just couldn't. And I know I'm repeating myself, but it could have been something so much better. I don't know what they needed, but they could have made something incredible with Azure Dreams, and not something that I just can't bring myself to play all the way through. And this is coming from a guy who spent hundreds of hours on Final Fantasy X, getting absolutely everyone to full sphere grid and everything. So I am fine with grinding as long as there is an end goal in sight, as I said. But with Azure Dreams, it just doesn't seem like there is. And that's really all there is to say about Azure Dreams. It could have been great. It could have been an incredible PS1 RPG. But it's bogged down by too much grinding, a confused sense of identity about what genre it's actually trying to be, not knowing whether it's going to be a roguelike RPG or a standard RPG or a town builder or all these different things put together. And I love mixed genres. Kudelka and Parasite Eve are some of my favourite games, and they mix survival horror and RPG elements, but it has to be done right and not to the point where it's a confusing mess. I think the only way to really summarise Azure Dreams is that if you find it in a bargain bin somewhere for a really cheap price, get it and try it for yourself. But don't go on eBay or some second-hand shop and pay anything over probably about £5 for it, if that. It could have been a great game, and I really wish I liked it. I really do, because I love RPGs on PS1, especially the weird and the wonderful ones. But it just doesn't work for me at all. And for all those big Azure Dream fans out there, because I know there are some people who adore this game, I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to bash it. I'm just giving my honest opinion. It doesn't do it for me. I can't finish the game, and I finished almost every game I've ever played, apart from this and maybe 2 or 3 other ones that left me feeling the same way. And that's it for this episode of RPG Retrospective. If you enjoyed it, a like, share and subscribe would be really appreciated, as I upload a new episode every single weekend. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.